definitely one of the most fast formats for chess. It is going to be 3 minutes with 2 seconds of increment per move.
Right, so they start with 3 minutes, but every time they make a move, they can gain 2 seconds, so we can keep going. Interesting. And Yovi, it's a best-of-4 format. Now, I'm no mathematician, but that could equal a 2-2 draw, right? What happens if there's a draw?
Oh, you're going to love it, because the match will be decided by something that's called Armageddon. And this is where White will have 5 minutes on the clock, Black will only have 4, but White is in a must-win situation. And you know that added time bonus that Nemo was talking about? It doesn't exist. What you see on the clock is what you get.
Wow, some people love to see the world burn. I'm one of those people. I want Armageddon chess today. I'd love to see a tiebreaker go to it. But either way, we have 4 players left in this incredible event. For those of you who maybe are still wondering what the format's like, let's throw it to a bit of an explainer to explain how chess is going to work here at the Olympic Esports Series.
Chess.com, the phenomenon that helped popularize chess. It is the platform used by the world's top players. As there are no latency problems, opponents from different continents can face each other. It contains tutorials for beginners, instructions for key moves, and ranking of the most renowned names. From the web, you can watch live streams from different countries with the link to their channel. There are thousands of channels streaming daily, and there are great stars, such as Hikaru Nakamura, with 1.7 million followers on Twitch.
Where's the mate, though? I don't know, but it's gotta be there. Oh my God, it made it!
Can't wait to see some of those raw reactions from our players. Now, chess is an incredible game that everyone knows, even if you're no good at it. It's been around for about 1,500 years, but what we're experiencing today is really a first, Nemo. These guys are going to be playing on chess.com, live atmosphere, lights, music, it's all going on. How does that affect them?
Honestly, it is very, very rare that chess players are going to be playing in, you know, a venue like this. This is definitely a first. We don't usually have flashing lights. We don't commonly have a crowd full of strangers. You know, your mom and dad might show up to an event or two, but this is just, you have strangers sitting here watching you guys play chess. And I think for the players, honestly, it's going to be a first for them too. So who knows how it might affect them. It might hype them up. They might feel a little bit nervous, but only the chess will be able to tell.
Exactly right. Only the best will prevail in this one. And there are 4 players left fighting out for those 3 trophies. But let's be real, everyone wants that gold trophy at the end of the day. But we didn't start with 4 players, Yovi, did we? This has been a long road for these guys.
Yeah, this certainly has been a long ride. You know, first of all, there have been like 42,000 people competing online, and yesterday it was whittled down to 10 people playing on site, and now we only have 4 players remaining who are fighting it out for those trophies.
And just to reiterate for those guys, there are 4 players left, but the semi-finals have already been played, and so we are going to kick it off with a battle for 3rd place before the one we've all been waiting for, the final, to decide who's going to take home that trophy. But before all that, let's give you some context. There's been plenty of chess being played. Yovi, you saw a bit of the chess being played earlier at this venue. Plenty of games yesterday. There was some exciting action, wasn't it?
There was certainly a lot of action. I mean, especially in Pool A, it was so tense. You know, it wasn't until the final game finished that we actually found out who was going to qualify into the semis.
Oh, incredible. Wow, reporter on the field, Ash, was down there enjoying all of that chess action as 10 had to become 4. Ash, what do you got for us?
The world's top chess players vying for a spot in the finals of the Olympic Esports Series for the very first time here in Singapore, and it was a Friday full of riveting action. So let's find out what happened in the Friday qualifiers. As expected, the qualifiers were a hotly contested event. On offer, the chance to be crowned the first ever Olympic Esports champion in virtual chess on chess.com. Now, the 4th round of action in Pool A saw Alexander Bortnik unleashing a scintillating display of chess that left his opponents reeling. And in another titanic tussle, Nguyen knocked Trong Son from Vietnam battled it out against Maxim Chigaev. And in the final round of the pool stages, Nguyen and Alexander, a favourite to qualify, engaged in an exciting battle that went down to the wire. But in the end, Nguyen came out on top, defeating Alexander and securing his spot in the next round with a score of 9.5. Meanwhile, Chigaev had an incredible round, scoring a perfect 10. In Pool B, it was also an exciting race to the semi-finals as Basim Amin and Alexander Rakhmanov squared off against one another. Alexei Sarana also displayed a full repertoire of skills and took the top spot with a score of 10.5. Meanwhile, the runner-up Rakhmanov closed the group stage with a score of 10.0. The semi-finals of the tournament were set with Rakhmanov and Chigaev facing off in a best-of-4 match, while Nguyen and Sarana battled it out for the other spot in the finals. The crowd was buzzing with excitement as the two matches got underway. And finally, the stage is set for the next stage of the chess event. Sarana and Chigaev will compete at the finals of the Olympic Esports Series.
Because I am blitz player, I'm rapid player, okay, but okay, I'm so happy that I did it.
Today was very tough day, but before the tournament I consider myself as favorite, so I expected a lot for this tournament.
I played against Alexei so many times, and but anyway, it will be interesting match, I guess. So I hope to win.
All the best, Maxim.
We are watching proper masters at work today. I cannot wait. Yovi, you had a close eye on that Pool A action. There was plenty of drama, but tell me about the finalists who got out of that group.
Yeah, I mean, what was really surprising in that pool was actually that the rating favorite in the whole tournament didn't get through. He got eliminated. And yeah, that was incredible. But from the finalists, we saw Maxim Chigaev. He actually cruised through and won that pool. And he also defeated Rakhmanov in the semi-finals very comfortably. Everything went his way. Even when he was losing, he turned it around.
Incredible. So the favorite bowed out straight away. Is that nerves? What do you put that down to?
I think it was nerves. I mean, we actually saw him in the footage grasping his head with his hands. You know, he was completely devastated.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a long way to travel to play chess, as you said, in front of an audience as well. Nemo, what about Pool B? Tell me about this finalist that's gone all the way to the last two. Can he do it?
Well, I think Pool B was extremely, extremely exciting. We do have Sarana Alexei, who is only 23 years old and is just one of the world's best chess players. He has a peak FIDE ranking of 47 in classical chess. And honestly, he is going to be facing off against Chigaev in the Olympic Esports Winner Trophy for the finals. And I think he has a good shot, but maybe Jovi. What do you think?
Well, Sarana is on paper the favorite, but really it's all about form. I mean, how games are so fast that anything really can happen.
Yeah, and you did say to me as well, the games are not only so fast, but these guys are going to see the audience in the back. For you, Nemo, playing in front of a live crowd like this, what's one bit of advice you'd give them?
I would say to just tune everybody out. You have to just stay focused on that chess. You only have 3 minutes with that 2-second increment, of course, but it is such a tense game. So best of luck to all of these players, and yeah, it'll be exciting.
Well, best of luck to these players. Best of luck to you two, which will be our expert commentators for this coverage. There are 10 million games played every day of chess.com, and you guys get to see the very best right now. Enjoy.
And welcome everyone to Chess at the Olympic Esports Series. In contest for our very first match for today, we do have the Olympic Esports Series third place trophy, where we will see Nguyen face off against Rakhmanov with the white pieces in the very first game. Now, Nguyen having the white pieces in the very first game also means that he will be playing white in the third game, as well as Armageddon if it comes to that. And after, you know, the third place match, we are going to be seeing the Olympic Esports Series winners match, as well as the contest for second place between Sarana and Chigaev.
Yeah, and here we can see the 4 players remaining in the competition. It's going to be a big matchup. First of all, Nguyen against Rakhmanov, and then we're going to see Alexei Sarana against Maxim Chigaev, as Nemo said. And what a journey they've had. Nguyen actually winning, becoming runner-up in Pool B. And then we have Alexei Sarana, winner of Pool A. He is such a fantastic competitor.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is going to be an extremely exciting match. They have come a very, very long way for the Olympic Esports Series here in Singapore. And we are going to be seeing the players walk out very, very soon. So I hope everybody here is excited as your commentators will be for this match.
Let's welcome the players. Let's bring them on. First up, it's Nguyen. Let's bring them on. Next is Alexander Rakhmanov. Let's bring them on. Followed by Alexei Sarana. Let's bring them on. And this is Maxim Chigaev. And let's give it up one more time for your players.
All right, so we do have our final 4 players here. Now, they are not going to be all playing against each other once again, but we will be seeing Nguyen play against Rakhmanov for the 3rd place trophy. Would you like to run us through the format once again, Jovi?
Yes, the players will be playing a best of 4 blitz match at a time control of 3 minutes plus 2-second added bonus per move. And if the match is tied, everything will be decided by an Armageddon game where white will have 5 minutes on the clock, black will only have 4, but black has the draw odds, which means that white must win that game. So there will be a winner.
There will be a winner today. And, well, I'm personally super excited for this. Nguyen is the youngest Vietnamese to ever become a Grandmaster, and actually one of the youngest Grandmasters in the history of the game, having qualified for the title at only the age of 14. I mean, does the crowd have any feelings about this match? What are your feelings about this match? This is going to be insane.
I know, insane is the right word. This one is going to go right down to the wire. Like you mentioned, Nguyen becoming Grandmaster at 14. Can you believe that? And also Rakhmanov also becoming a Grandmaster at 16 years old. I mean, that's just insane. And in terms of style, both players have great solid foundations. But I have to say, Nguyen does rely on his tricks to navigate him through difficulties. And all while he's opening with the Queen's Pawn. And there we see Rakhmanov with the black pieces opening in a very solid style. And there we can see the knights getting developed. And whoa, what is this with the pawns there? It's completely ignoring the rules of development. And there we see the dark squared bishop come out into play. And what is really important here in chess is actually to develop your pieces. And it's going to be a battle for the center. And what we see here is white actually stake a post with that bishop right in the middle.
Right, we have the opening coming out very quickly. Once again, this is 3 minutes with 2 seconds increment. We do have the analysis board on the side where we are going to be giving you some of our expert analysis. Now, the games are very fast, so we are going to be mostly showing you arrows and what our thoughts are. So please do follow as these players are facing off in their very first game.
Yeah, and both players playing in a very natural style now. The knights are out, and this is a really important move that white's just played, moving the queen just to connect those rooks. And what is it's going to be all about whether white can break in the center, whether white can just push those pawns on the left side of the board. And whoa, the action has already started because black is saying that, let me put that knight in the middle and let me anchor that piece.
This knight has to get out of here. I'm pretty sure Alexander right now just thinking about, right, there's no way he can keep that knight there, right?
But another one is going to come.
But another one's going to come. He's coming for it. And now there's a lot of options here for white. He can potentially play f3. He doesn't need to do it. Nguyen does play what Jovi was suggesting, which is to push some pawns up on the left side of the board, and we see these pawns moving up. So if you're a little bit newer to chess, if you haven't, played as many games as the two fellow gentlemen that are playing on this stage at this very moment, you might be wondering, well, what is the goal of this position? And it can be pretty hard to actually find plans in the middle game. So we're going to be seeing these two top-level grandmasters battle it out in what is currently a fairly safe, fairly solid position.
Yeah, and certainly is solid. And what you're seeing there, especially from black, is both sides are trying to find homes for their knights. So black's knight wants to just put itself on that c4 square right there on the edge of the board, just so that it's just a nuisance for white. And white will be doing the same. White will also try to find a role for that knight, but that c-pawn was under attack. The white rook standing on an open line, looking down at that pawn, and well, there can be no success without breakthrough, and now white's pawns are trying to find lines for the white rooks.
A really interesting idea, right? I was just going to say, they're playing so fast that before I even make my comment, they have already made the move, but Nguyen is going to open up this A file for his other rook. Now, both of white's rooks are doing slightly better than black's rooks, mostly because, this one is on a completely open file. It has all of these squares to go to along the A file, and the white rook on C1 is currently facing what is called in chess a backwards pawn, because it is backwards. It cannot move forward very comfortably, so we do have a slightly positional advantage, a little bit better position for white here, but it is nothing significant.
Yeah, it is nothing significant. Like you say, white's small advantage is based on the fact that the rooks are better placed. They are standing, attacking pawns on open lines. Rooks, their horizontal, vertical piece is very straightforward. And whoa, look at that move from black. Black, moving the queen to look at the white king and is saying, you know what? Actually, I'm going to start to try an attack there. Black wants it all, full board vision.
Black is absolutely trying to make some progress in this position, because if he doesn't, as we stated before, white does have that very slight positional edge, so if he's just going to sit around and do, nothing, then it's not going to be the best result for him. But white does come out with a tactic over here. This move, pawn to h4, might look like a free pawn, but if black takes, there is going to be a free bishop right now. So that will not be played by black.
Yeah, we should also mention that it would not be a good trade because
right.
pawns are only worth 1 point,
right.
Whereas bishops are worth 3 and counting upwards if they're very strong. And so that's why the black queen has to take a step back. And I also want to point out something that's super important the more the play continues, and that is the clock. Both players don't have that much time, and there we see Rakhmanov. He has just over 1 minute. And a general rule of thumb when it comes to the clock is that if you're under 1 minute, the players are going to feel some stress. And oh, look at this.
This is exciting. This is very exciting. So we talked a little bit about this free bishop, right? And now it is a free bishop, but only for one move, as black takes this pawn on e3, and all of a sudden the knight on f4 is hanged. So although Rakhmanov was down time, he is now cashing up as Nguyen has some questions to answer about his position. Where is his queen that is under attack from the black rook going to go? How is he going to protect this knight? And there's a lot of, he can play knight to d3 right now, but I'm sure he is feeling the pressure from black as the rooks come down on this open file against his rather exposed king. So knight to d3 has been played, and rook c to e8 has been played.
Yeah, and I have to say it is scary times for white because the white king is very nervous. It doesn't have any defenders there. And the black's next move is very simple. It's going to put the rook on perhaps the second row, and maybe the queen will start sniffing around that g2 pawn that is in front of the white king. It's very difficult actually for white pieces to coordinate because the white's rook is out there on a jolly adventure. Oh, it's come back now. This is very important.
Right. I mean, the evaluation here is currently minus 1.34, and that is just what the engine thinks this position is evaluated at, and I am letting you guys know this because as times... Oh, this is going to be so exciting. This is going to be exciting. We do have the queen takes coming out. There is going to be queen takes c1. This is a blitz game, so anything can still happen, but black is making slight progress. Now, you might think that this rook is currently hanging on e8, and it is black's turn to move. So where is black going to be moving this rook?
Yeah, I mean, black does have to be careful. Black, for instance, can't get really ambitious with the rook and try to line it up with the queen because white does have some counter-attacking threats of their own. Perhaps a rook can come to a8, and that would be something called the back rank checkmate, so you don't want to be doing that. But black certainly does the upper hand with count the pawns. Black is a pawn up.
Black is a pawn up, and well,
a bit more, I think.
Yeah, a bit more. 2 pawns up, 2 pawns up. But his rook was still under attack. We are going to go into this endgame. White is, however, able to capture this pawn on c6. And after the queens have been traded off, Jovi, I think this position will actually be quite equal as white will be snapping up either of these pawns, the one on b5 or the pawn on d5, coming up very shortly. Black does get this pawn on f3, but endgames, you know.
Endgames, anything can happen, and also Rakhmanov will be kicking himself because he will have felt that he had a very good opportunity to actually put the game away. And there we see Nguyen. He is being so tricky there. He's got the black king in close. Rook and bishop work so well together.
Rook and bishop absolutely work better together than rook and knight. And it's a very simple idea, actually. It's mostly because, you know, rooks travel horizontally and vertically. Oh, as I was saying that, he just decided he doesn't need the bishop anymore, which is also fine because, you know, if you're going to be playing against somebody of this caliber, you probably felt like you were a little bit worse in this middle game. I would imagine that Nguyen is not too upset with a draw in this current situation.
No, and take a look at the clock times.
Oh, but he missed a move here. He missed g4. Where after this, there's king g6 with checkmate. Now, obviously, they're playing very, very, very fast. So it's very easy to miss that. But there was essentially a checkmate in 3 threat that white could only get out of by sacrificing the rook. So a missed win there from Rakhmanov.
Yeah, that was a golden opportunity, but when you only have 10 seconds on the clock and now 18 seconds, I mean, that is such a difficult thing to see. The players are just relying on their instincts here, and there is a saying in endgames, this is an endgame, there isn't that many pieces left. Teamwork makes the dream work, and there you can see the black king coming in. You know, he is trying to win that g3 pawn, but the problem for black is every time he steps forward with that rook, the white rook will come and chase away the black king.
Right, there is not much that black can make for progress in this position. However, Jovi, now this is a very important question. Can black win this endgame?
No.
This is a bit of an inside joke between us because we were having a conversation about this earlier. So you might be seeing this position and, you know, recognize that black is up a pawn. But because it is a rook and pawn endgame, rook and pawn endgames are oftentimes a draw. And here we actually are going to walk into and draw by insufficient material as there are no more pieces on the board possible for you to even win the game.
Yeah, and the players get a round of applause. This is the first time, I think, in history, as we mentioned before, that the players will be playing in front of a live audience with the lights beaming down on them. And you can all feel the vibe. You can all feel the anticipation. We are just waiting for that rematch. There's a discussion there with the arbiters. And of course, we have 2 very capable arbiters in the room, Judith and Tanya. They are monitoring what happens on the board, over the board, and all around the board. So what is happening there?
All right, so the very first game in this 4-game match has concluded with a draw. Now, it might go to a game 5. What are you thinking about the chances for an Armageddon game right now, Jovi?
Well, if it gets to Armageddon, it's just like hold on to your seats and
Right.
buckle up,
Right.
because it's going to get fast and furious. We're going to see techniques that are very special to online chess, something called a pre-move, especially when it comes to those final seconds. Those are moves that you make whilst your opponent is thinking, and they cost like 0.01
Right.
of a second. And it's going to get furious, and often, anything can happen.
Absolutely, fast and furious, just like how we, enjoy our chess. The games are going to be very exciting, so I hope you guys are going to be excited for game number 2 as well. They are about to start very, very soon, and we do see the first moves come out over here, and we have an evaluation bar on the side for all of our viewers at home to follow along and see who is currently doing a little bit better in the position. But I do want everyone to take it with a grain of salt. Do remember, these players are playing 3 minutes with 2 seconds increment, and, trying to come up with amazing chess moves in that period of time is very difficult.
It is very difficult, and you also have to take into account the nature of the position and take a look at the pawns. Like right here, there's been a big change. That pawn that white has in the middle of the board, it's got no friends. That means it potentially can be super weak. And what black will try to do is black will try and trade off all those minor pieces, the bishops, the knights, and try and pounce on that pawn in an endgame. And there we see him capturing the pawn. And the reason he does that is because, well, 2 pawns by themselves are also not that great either.
Absolutely. In an endgame, you want to have less pawn islands. And what is a pawn island? Well, a pawn island is a pawn that is by itself and doesn't have any other pawns next to it. So currently white has 3 pawn islands over here, and black only has 2. So if we're going to go into an endgame, which, as you can sort of, guess from the name of, from the word itself, an endgame is when most of the pieces have been traded off and you have lesser pieces, fewer pieces on the board.
Yeah.
Mostly pawns.
Yeah, exactly. When you don't have that many pieces, that's an endgame, especially when the queens get traded off. That's an endgame.
There's a lot of conversations, a lot of discussion, a lot of arguments about what exactly is an endgame that I don't want to get into. But just know, once the queens are off the board and maybe 2 of the knights, 2 of the bishops, maybe a rook, it's an endgame.
It's an endgame. And when it comes to endgame, it's all about the strategy. And right now, what you're seeing from black is something called light square strategy. Because look what he's doing. He's controlling all the light squares that white has. And as Nemo's pointing out, it is all about that c4 square. He wants to put a knight on c4 eventually and just anchor that one down. And that's why Rakhmanov says, you know what, I don't want that. I don't like that plan. And instead, he has the bishops. He's trying to open up the position. And he's opened up the A-line for his rook. This is really tense.
Absolutely. He actually gives up his pair of bishops for the knight on d5, which, to be fair, was quite a good knight. So I understand why he did that. However, he is going to have a harder time now answering on the light squares. He doesn't have that light squared bishop anymore. And if you don't have a light squared bishop, it means that, well, your light squares will be weaker because you're lacking one more piece that is able to access that color of a square.
Yeah, but he's also saying, Rakhmanov saying, you know what, I don't have the light squares, but I got the dark squares.
Right.
And I'm going to use those to the best of my abilities. And that's why he's chasing away that knight. That knight is now under attack. It is forced to move. And I also want to draw attention to one thing. Look who's ahead on the clock. Nguyen has a 30-second clock advantage, and that can be quite significant.
Nguyen has had a time advantage in the first game as well. I'm currently feeling that he might be a little bit more comfortable in these time controls, but as I am saying that, he is currently stuck here trying to figure out... Right. He's having a long think. What could he possibly be thinking about? I mean...
Move the knight.
Move the knight.
Move the knight forward or backwards.
It's under attack. Where's your knight going to go? I think he's looking for something very, very fancy here. There's probably ideas with rook takes e8, queen takes e8, followed by rook to e8, where you have the option of moving your rook away from the a file.
Yeah, and well, he was actually forced to do this once those rooks were traded off, as the 2 rooks were eyeing up each other. And now the queen has to move. Where's she going to go? Is she going to go towards her king? Because the queen is a very good defender of the king. Or is she going to be, okay, she protects her king. This is good strategy. It's you often see this with the best players in the world. They make sure that every single one of their pieces are protected. And the reason they do that is because then they can play moves super quickly. And there we see Alexander saying, let's trade off rooks. Let's go off into that endgame.
I think Alexander is going to be, you know, quite happy with his endgame. He definitely had chances in the previous one. So, you know, it's only game 2. Who knows what might happen? But when you're seeing two players of about the same caliber, both players are very, very experienced grandmasters face off. They are going to go into the endgame quite frequently.
But look at Rakhmanov's last move. You know, he just pushed his h-pawn 2 squares forward. It's coming towards the black king. You know, is he planning something there? You know, maybe that pawn can step forward 1 more square.
Right.
And, you know, say to black, I might not be threatening an attack now, but you're going to have to think about it for the rest of all time.
I think that's one of those strategies in chess that you have to be very aware of. You might be making a move without the clearest of plans, but you still have to make a move. And when you're playing 3 minutes plus 2 seconds, you do not have the time to come up with a very well-formulated 15-move plan. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little bit there. You know, I don't think people are coming up with 15-move plans all that often, but it is going to be a situation where you have to come up with some moves in a very short span of time that do not make your position worse. And you have to have some sort of idea to go with it, right, Jovi?
Exactly. And it's all about like keeping your opponent guessing as well, because now the white king has stepped forward. I mean, black has so many things to think about. He has to think about what the queen and knight are up to there on the left. He also has to think about whether he should be trading off rooks. Is that a good thing? And, you know, already those 2 choices is going to mean that he's going to have to burn some time on the clock. And there we can see when it comes to the clock, Nguyen around that 1 minute mark. And Alexander, well, he's now down to 40 seconds. Now, my observations from doing commentary is that players can withstand the tension of being low on time for approximately maybe 30 moves when it comes 30, 40 moves. But then after that, at some point, the players just crack. And talking about cracking, I mean, we see Alexander there. He's attacking the bishop.
Right. And once again, these players do not fear giving up their pieces because this queen on c7 was just once again attacking this knight on f4, so there was no time for white to capture the bishop on f5. So after the knight has been protected, the bishop moves now to c2, getting away from being able to be captured. This is a very, very equal position at the current moment. But because it is a blitz game, you might see that the evaluation bar says it's equal. However, don't you think there are chances for both sides here?
I mean, there's certainly lots of chances for both sides. I mean, also white now playing with under 20 seconds. Remember, you do get that extra time, and things have already dropped up. Oh,
the
no!
bishop got captured with a check. So that means that there is no time for black to take this knight on f4 with check. Indicates that you have to do something to protect your king. You can't just leave it in check. So white is actually now up an entire knight.
And no, and just take a look at that body language. You can see Nguyen shaking his head. He knows he's messed it up. He's completely blundered. And well, Alexander is different. He's in power pose. He knows all he has to do is consolidate the position, consolidate the king, and then that extra knight will just decide the game.
Right. Black is having a lot of difficulty now protecting your position. Once again, an extra piece in chess is a very, very big deal, especially at this high of a level. Imagine just having extra forces, having an extra person being able to help you in your attack or protect your king in this case, which is why Rakhmanov is very happy to trade off queens, because if the queens are off, then he has an easy path to victory in this position with this extra knight that can just jump around and go for black's pawns, where black can't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. That knight, it likes to jump around, jump up, jump down. And what's happening here? And the queen has moved over. Black's only chance is actually to get something that we call perpetual check, where the black queen can just keep checking the white king until perpetuity, as I like to say. And, well, he's trying, but take a look. The White King does have a home to hide in.
Right, and one of the biggest problems for Black is that he can never trade off that queen if he wants any chance at a result that is not a loss. So White, although is not going for perpetual, he does, you know, insist on swapping up this queen. So here we're actually going to see a resignation from Nguyen.
Yeah, and we can see it was such a close game until the big blunder where Nguyen just blundered his bishop, and there you can see him looking up at the ceiling. He can't quite believe it.
Right. I mean, this game was very, very tough. You know, these games are fast. These games are, they can be very unpredictable. We're already diving into game number 3. These are fast-paced matches, and when you don't have time in between games to sort of, you know, think out your mistakes and all of that stuff, you kind of feel something in your body. You're kind of feeling the fact that, oh no, I might have, you know, I blundered last game. How am I going to do this round? How am I going to do now?
It's difficult to shake off those emotions. It's difficult to shake off that pain. And well, Nguyen has to do it. What's gone is gone. It's done. It's dusted. You know, we can't see him shaking his head now. That's a really bad sign. But okay, I think he's adjusted now. He's moved his queen there out to attack the pawn on b7, and Black has simply defended that. And now it's just all about, you know, just marking out the territory, just simply developing the pieces. White has a slight advantage because take those 2 pawns there in the center. They control a lot of squares. But so what Black will do is once they've castled the king is try to chip away.
Right. Nguyen is starting off this game with quite a large space advantage, and it is going to be one of those positions where, you know, it is going to be slightly slower. It is a close position. This is what we would describe as a close position because there are no open files just yet. Not a lot of opportunities to break through in the center. But even if we call it a slow game, you already know these games get exciting so fast, so quickly. And we can see here, he is actually going to try to push up the c5 pawn potentially to open up the c file for his rook on c1.
Yeah, and that's why Black stopped it, because if White was allowed to do everything they wanted and grab that space as you highlighted there, Nemo, White would be just basically winning.
Right.
And you can't just play like that. You need to fight. And what we're seeing here is Black just also marking out the territory. But Black has also gotten some gains as well. He's kind of softened up the White King. The White King is devoid of protection on the light squares. So first of all, Black's plan is just to consolidate what's happening on the left, and on the right side, initiate an attack.
Exactly. And once again, these are the kind of positions where we will see a little bit of shuffling. But because the games are so fast and so quick, it's going to get exciting very, very, very soon. Here we see when actually play a4 in order to stop the opponent's pawn from potentially ever coming to b5.
Yeah, and we're beginning to see it now. Decision time for White. You know, do you take that pawn? Do you let it stand? And he decides, okay, he's going to use a special rule called en passant, and he's captured that pawn. And the knights are now springing forward.
All right, so we have 2 minutes for Nguyen and 2 minutes 21 for Rakhmanov. They've only spent 1 minute. In fact, one of the players has actually only spent 40 seconds, which is where you see the 2-second increment actually coming in effect. You know, if you only had 3 minutes, these games would be even faster. But I hope you guys are all enjoying the fast paces of today's games thus far.
Yeah, it certainly is fast. And also Nguyen with the white pieces will be looking to win this game. Because, you know, winning with Black is not an easy thing to do at all.
Winning, so here's one of those little insider info tricks that we're going to tell you, tell the audience. When you're playing chess, if you're the Black pieces against someone who is about equal or maybe a little stronger, you're generally not playing for a win. You're kind of playing to draw the game because White has that one extra tempo advantage, which at this level is a very big deal. It is a very big deal who gets the white pieces because you have more time to set up your attack. Usually you get a little bit more space. There's all sorts of information out on the internet on this, so we're not going to go into too many details, but in this case, Nguyen is going to be trying to play for that win.
Yeah, it's like having the ace in tennis, basically. You kind of determine the nature of the game. And whoa, this is good news for Nguyen, because he does have 2 knights on black side of the board. And generally, when it comes to chess, what you want to do is you want to split the board in half. Anything that is the first 4 rows, that belongs to white. Anything that is from black, 4 rows up, down, or up, is also belonging to black. And you can see 2 white knights there in the territory, and well, it's not easy for Alexander to kick those knights out, so what he has to do is generate some counterplay, and he's opened up a line for his rook. Rooks really need lines, and now we see a trade of pawns. The queen is under attack, but big thing here. The white knight can jump to the c7 square, and if it does that, that would be like a big family fork, but that would be a big mistake because the queen could come back and give a check.
Right, what Jovi said is entirely correct. The tactics in this position, which is what tactics is the chess term we use to describe all these little tricks, all these little moves you might see in between 1 to 6 moves, really. Anything that might happen is considered tactics, but the tactics in these positions are very intense and very difficult to find when you, once again, Nguyen only has 36 seconds now, a whole minute behind Alexander. Does he want to go into this endgame?
Yeah, this is the problem for Nguyen. You know, he really wants to win this. Also, he's down on the clock. And do you trade off queens and go into an endgame where you're going to be
worse?
Just
straight up worse.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, though, is that kind of when you kind of compare these positions, the bishop is fighting against the knight. Look at the pawns. If there aren't that many pawns on the board, it means the position is open. Bishops are fantastic long-range pieces. Just think of them like archers. You're not going to put an archer behind a brick wall, actually behind, so it can't look over.
Yeah.
You want it looking over with a clear vision. And knights, they excel in those close positions. They like to jump around. And when he doesn't have much time, he needs to confuse the matter.
Alexander coming down to about 50 seconds here. He, too, is deciding what he should play. Notice there is not queen takes c7 here because of this lovely tactic where we can take this bishop using our knight with a check.
Yeah, nice
with a check.
spot.
Right. So now the king is forced to move because once again, if your king is under check, you have to move it or do something to get out of check. And if the king moves, then once again, you can take this knight, take this rook. And if the king moves this side.
Check.
With a check, once again, right? So if you move it anywhere else, now the knight's not under attack, so you just get a free bishop. So this will not be played in the game. So Alexander has decided he's going to retreat the queen simply. He doesn't want to deal with the tactics right now. And actually, this is important to note. This is called a pin. The knight cannot move aside because the king is going to be under check. Once again, a lot of checks. We're learning chess terminology here for everybody at home who might not have played as many games as the gentleman on the stage.
Ooh, and when did you see that? He advanced his h-pawn 2 squares forward, and he was kind of signaling to black, your king is going to be under attack. And when, he's renowned for his tricks, for his tactics, for his resourcefulness, and he's really putting the pressure on Rakhmanov.
Absolutely. He is pushing for a win in a position where he is not even better. And I think that says something about, him being a grandmaster, him being one of the best players in the world. You know where you have to grasp at chances, and he is currently grasping at those chances. And these are actually not terrible chances. They both have about 10 seconds. With that 2-second increment right now, anybody can still blunder. Anybody can make the mistake. You just have to be on top of your tactics. You just have to find those little tricks, potentially win a piece, and then all of a sudden you're going to be, this is interesting.
This is big decision there from Nguyen. He's saying, take my rook. But if you take my rook, I'm going to be left with a queen and knight. And queen and knight as a pair are fearsome attackers. They are so dangerous. And there we see Rakhmanov being forced to run with the king towards the center. But is this going to fizzle out into a draw whilst the knight just keeps on checking the black king? I think it's not going to run away to the center, so it's going to fizzle out into a draw.
I wanted to mention really quickly here, actually, that if a draw, you can get a draw in chess by repeating moves. I think this is a very important note. If you repeat the position 3 times, according to FIDE rules, the game does end in a draw. And one of the main reasons why Rakhmanov took this draw in this position was because if he moved his king to the center, which he did not do. He would have lost the rook potentially on a8. So he didn't want to do that. But a draw for the third game where Nguyen had the white pieces does mean he is in a must-win situation with the black pieces in game 4.
Yeah, if he wants to take it to Armageddon, Nguyen has to win. And Rakhmanov with the white pieces is like having the serve. He will choose the nature of the game. And actually by pushing that little pawn forward, he's actually planning to put the light square bishop on the best diagonal possible, the longest diagonal of the board. And now the king is into safety. And this is a very, very solid line for white, because white just simply saying, I'm just going to take the center, have good development, and is setting that challenge to black saying, come break me down. And Nguyen has to say challenge accepted, and so he's going to start preparing now a pawn break. So it's either going to be that e pawn, he's going to push that 2 squares forward, or it's going to be that c pawn. Either way, black has to destabilize the center, okay, and it's now the e pawn that's made its bid.
Right, so we are going to be seeing a very safe opening from both players in game 4. And as Jovi was mentioning, you know, playing with the white pieces means you do get a little bit more space, you get a little bit more center because you have that one extra move. So Alexander here is actually seems to be very okay swapping off this. He does realize that he is in a, he only has to draw to advance to, well actually to just straight up win the 3rd place trophy, right? So he only has to draw right now.
Yeah, exactly. And who doesn't want to be on that stage with the trophies in the first ever Olympic Esports Series? I mean, it's so much glory. And also, chess players are the most competitive people around.
Absolutely.
They're going to hate this if they lose.
Right, right. And I am currently feeling for Nguyen, where he is in this must-win situation with a fairly passive position coming out of the opening. But, you know, once again, it is 3+2. Anything can happen. He is moving his queen out a little bit to get a little bit more space for his pieces. However, he does have less space than his opponent. The bishop here by Rakhmanov is on a quite nice diagonal, whereas the black bishop on g7 is behind his own pawn.
Yeah, and well, you kind of mentioned that black was passive, and that's why Nguyen has actually moved his knight towards the center, and now the light squared bishop can actually come and perhaps attack the queen. But there we see clever things from Rakhmanov. Now, Rakhmanov is like a middle game specialist. But what I mean by middle game is the kind of stage of the game where the pieces are all still very much on the board. And there it's all about maneuvering. It's all about setting up those pawn pushes. It's all about being very fancy and thinking about what your opponent wants to do. And once you figure that out, stop them.
Right, exactly. Prophylactic thinking is one of the most important parts about chess that a lot of people might not realize, which is a very fancy way of saying, how do I stop my opponent from doing what they want to do, right? Like chess is always a two-person kind of dance. You don't get to just do whatever you want to do. You have to think about what the opponent wants to do. You always have to think about, you know, how can I stop them while I'm also accomplishing my own sort of tasks, where I'm accomplishing my own goals. So they actually did just repeat moves. There's no chance that Nguyen is going to want to draw this position. So we see the queen come back to c7.
Yeah, and the queen had to make a retreat because the knight was simply coming her way to attack her. And the big question for black is how is he going to develop that light square bishop, which is still sleeping at home. And when has an answer, he's going to put it on the a6 square and start attacking white's queen. And, well, Alexander Rakhmanov, he's in a kind of situation where if he just draws this, he wins the 3rd place trophy. But he's making a little bit negative decisions. He's simply like moving his pieces backwards and forwards.
Right. I think it's okay in such a close position. When you're in a close position, you have a little bit more freedom with what you move, simply because the position runs slower. Not in terms of the speed at which you make the moves, just the pace of the game, if you understand what I'm talking about. Imagine it as if, you know, you're just kind of dribbling the ball around right now, nothing's happening, you're just shuffling your pieces, you're not trying to make a strike on the goal right now, you're just making your moves. And I think that's one of those things about chess, that at this level, these players do so much better than the average chess player, because they're just shuffling pieces without making their position worse, which is hard, which is very hard. We sometimes don't appreciate that enough.
Exactly. I mean, that takes some talent. I completely agree with you, because who likes to do nothing? And Nguyen says, I actually don't like to do nothing. And there we just saw him just attack the queen, and now he jumps into the center with his knight. Remember, really, White kind of owns those first 4 lines, and so he's going to be very affronted that there is a knight there in his territory. So big decision for White. Do you get rid of it, or do you try to play around that piece? And Rakhmanov says, I'm not getting rid of it just yet. I'll wait for that one, and instead just concentrates on defending that pawn on c2 that was under attack. But wow, this is big moment, because it does feel like Black has actually taken control, and now the aggressive move has come in again. The bishop attacking the rook, forcing this trade.
Now this is called an exchange sacrifice. So now White has a knight and a bishop for Black's rook. Also a little time update for everybody in this live audience. Nguyen has 45 seconds, whereas Alexander Rakhmanov has 1 minute 33. So once again, Nguyen is running a little bit lower on time, which you don't love to see when you have a very complicated position to play where you're down the exchange. To be fair, he has this 1 pawn for it, so you know it is an equal position on paper, but with a material imbalance, when you do not have the exact same number of pieces per side, we're calling it a material imbalance. It can be very difficult to handle.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Forget the evaluation bar, which is kind of sliding all over the place. You know, here the players are just relying on their instincts. For when he has less than 16 seconds on the clock, which means that he will be calculating everything possible, because it's all to do with those power of those black rooks. And when it comes to Rakhmanov, you know, he has the white pieces, he has that beneficial trade of having 2 pieces for that rook. He will be trying to provoke some weaknesses, and there you see when he is opening up those lines. Oh, what's happening here?
Oh my.
That was a lovely tactic.
This is going to be very exciting. So this might look like a free bishop, but there is queen takes g3.
Yeah, and then the rooks will follow through onto the second row.
Right, there's a lot of tactics here.
Oh, are we going to see? Are we going to see an Armageddon?
We might see an Armageddon. We actually might. So knight takes f2 has been played on the board, and now there's a couple of options here. Nguyen only has 6 seconds to figure out what is the best course of action. So let's see if he is able to find the continuations here. There is no way that White will play king h1. This is a free knight. So after king g1, we have a trade of queens. Unfortunately for Nguyen, he is not going to be able to get more out of that sacrifice, out of that tactic. However, he does have the pair rooks. He is still in a very good position here. He has gained 2 pawns now in return for his exchange, which means that he is actually now up.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little complicated. We don't need to get into piece.
Yeah, I mean, this position, I mean, you have to kind of forget like the kind of traditional counting method. It's all to do what pieces are really good, which ones are not good.
What's active? What's functioning? You
exactly. Know? And Black's rooks are really dangerous. You have the rook on d8 threatening to come all the way down to d2, start giving some checks.
And Alexander just went down to 2 seconds. Did you see that? He is playing so tight on the clock. He's so tight.
Yeah, I mean, also when just 7 seconds.
Oh my gosh. And now he's actually going to have this tactic where this bishop is defending the knight. It has to move back here to a1 or defend it this way. But I mean, as Jovi was saying, the piece evaluation basically doesn't matter now. It's about which pieces are being used in this position. And Black is currently using every single one of his pieces, even his pawns and his king.
Yeah, and you just saw another rook come down. The bishop has fallen, and it's just a matter of time. And there we see it when managing that important comeback win, which means
we have Armageddon. We have Armageddon. This will be the first Armageddon of the Olympic Esports Series. And it is for the 3rd place match, this 3rd place trophy. For colors, we are going to have Nguyen with white.
Yeah.
And Alexander Rakhmanov will be playing black.
Yes, and what that means with Armageddon is that white, Nguyen, will start off with 5 minutes on the clock. Black will have 4, but white is in a must-win situation. If the game is a draw, it will be Rakhmanov who wins and stands there on the stage with that 3rd place trophy. And there is no time added bonus whatsoever. What you see on the clock is what you're going to get, and it's going to get fast, it's going to get furious. This is the craziest form of chess around. I liken it to a street fight.
Absolutely. So this is going to be exciting, guys. I hope you're all as excited as we are for this Armageddon match. I mean, having all of this chess come down to an Armageddon game is really beautiful, honestly. It's one of those things where as a spectator and as your commentator, I am just so excited to see.
Yeah, I absolutely love Armageddon chess. I think it's the best form of chess around.
Have you ever played?
Yeah, I think I have.
Okay.
What
color do you prefer in Armageddon?
Well, you have different approaches. When you're playing online, generally it's better to be white to have that extra time.
So this is like a known strategy. This is a known tactic.
White will have 2 strategies at his disposal. First strategy is to keep all the pieces on the board, keep it tense, keep it tight, and you draw out the game for as long as possible. And you just want to do something which we call flag, which basically means that your opponent will lose on time.
So what makes Armageddon chess so different?
So it's just the whole emotion.
Okay.
The whole emotion, the whole stress, and the whole fact the players know that they will not be getting any extra time, and we have kickoff. The other strategy that white has at his disposal is just simply to go for the jugular, go hard for that black king. And what we're seeing here, I suspect, is the first approach, where Nguyen will just simply draw out the game for as long as possible, keep all the pieces on the board, keep that tension brewing.
I wanted to make a note also that you do not often see chess games played competitively with time odds. Effectively, players not starting out with the exact same time. Now, Armageddon is very special because of that. It is not considered, unfair, or you might say that, oh no, black has only 4 minutes. If black draws this game, Alexander Rakhmanov is going to win that 3rd place trophy. If anything, if you're somebody who likes draws in chess, I would imagine you might actually prefer to play black and say goodbye to that 1 minute. Be like, hey, I will play with 4 minutes. I'm happy to do this, and leave white with 5.
Yeah, and it's certainly going to be, well, it was a balance of odds because, yeah, as you mentioned, black does have the opportunity to draw and win the match. And there we see the players, they're connecting the rooks, and white establishing a good post for the knight on the c5 square. And still very much, so much tension there on the board. And one thing that we're going to constantly draw your eye to is the clock times.
Right.
Because they're not getting any time added bonuses.
Right.
And of course, Rakhmanov has less than a minute on the clock.
Rakhmanov with 3 minutes and 8 seconds going down now, as it is his move, and Nguyen has 4 minutes 13. They're playing practically at the exact same pace. Now, Rakhmanov cannot play at the same pace as Nguyen because he is going to run out of time with no increment before Nguyen does. However, if he can hold this position to a draw before he loses on time, he is going to win that trophy. So there's a lot of decisions being made here. It is going to be, not only are you playing a mind battle on the chessboard, you're also playing a mind battle with your time,
Absolutely. The clock is going to be your best friend here. You have to master it. And there we just saw a critical moment because Rakhmanov did blunder a pawn. And when now it's pawn up, but he is in a must-win situation, and that's why he's trying to trade off queens, because take a look at that black queen there. She's too close to comfort to the white king.
Right, and then now we come back for this queen trade. Rakhmanov keeps saying no to this queen trade, but I think now is the time for white to stop going for the queen and simply move the knight to c5, where it is a lot better on c5 than it was on a4. It is a lot closer to the center. In chess, we really like having control of the center these 4 squares in the middle of the board is what everybody tries to play around, which is why you usually tend to see pawns on either d4, d5 or e4, e5. Any of these combos are quite common in chess. So, you know, we might be going into the end game, or we might be going to this middle game, end game scenario. However, the center is still incredibly important.
Yeah, I completely agree, because after all, when you control the center, you control nearly all the squares. Just imagine if you get a knight there in the middle, it becomes a nocto knight.
Right.
Knight controls 8 squares.
Absolutely.
On the edge of the board, doesn't do anything.
Yes.
Pulls off the hedge. Okay, and now we see a kind of an aggressive move there from Rakhmanov. He's lining up his queen against the white king, and this is like such a well-tested strategy. When you feel that your king is in danger, swap off queens. It's my golden rule.
Absolutely. So if you ever feel you're in danger, chat, you just remembered what Jovi is saying. Swap off those queens. There's no way your opponent, well, I don't want to say no way, because somebody's going to test this out and then get checkmated. So we're not going to give you that much. But if you're ever in danger, you can swap off queens, which is what we might actually see here once again. If Nguyen tries to do so, he might play queen to f3. Instead, he plays queen to e5, which is also still trying to trade off the queen.
Yeah, and Nguyen in a very good situation. He's a pawn up, he has really good control of the center, and he's also got some extra time. But take a look, I mean, it's only now a 15-second time advantage. So anything can and will still happen. This is Armageddon chess.
Right. To be fair, Nguyen does have a pawn now. So I like to think about chess pieces in terms of time advantage sometimes when I play blitz games. I would say I would rather take this pawn advantage and be feeling safe, solid, knowing that I can probably, you know, convert this to potentially win at some point in this game. However, as Jovi was saying, Rakhmanov does have 2 minutes, and Nguyen only has 2 minutes and 14 seconds at this current time, which means he's no longer up that 1 entire minute that he started the game with, but he does have the pawn.
He does have that pawn, and at the minute, you know, Rakhmanov can just take kind of just consolation in the fact that that extra pawn can't really advance. It can't do any damage just yet, so he can ignore it for the time being. But he's offered a trade of queens.
I don't love this trade of queens.
I don't like that either.
I know we were saying like, hey, he's going for the queen trade, all these moves, but that was to stop the opponent from, you know, potentially checkmating one. But now you're going into an endgame where you're only up a pawn. It is a lot more tense. It is. Don't forget, you are in a must-win situation with the white pieces here.
Yeah, completely. I'm also not loving that decision. And there, well, we see when he does have the advantage of a pawn extra, but
however, he can't play king g3. He can't even defend his pawn because he was going to go into a repetition of moves. And as we stated in the last game, if you repeat the same position 3 times in chess, it is a draw.
Yeah, but this ending is now getting wild, because take a look at those 2 pawns that white has over there on the left side of the board. If they start marching up the board, then it's just going to be a one-way ticket to victory for white. And so this is why we see Rakhmanov there just causing some nuisance to the white king. And,
oh my.
Oh my. I mean, can you just actually play
bishop?
This?
Yeah, bishop g4, right? Isn't this a free bishop? I think Nguyen might have just missed that. At 1 minute 24 for Rakhmanov and 1 minute 20 for Nguyen, the time is exactly even. And Nguyen is now actually in a worse position. It is very, very difficult for Rakhmanov to lose a game in which they are up a whole bishop.
Yeah.
Remember when we said that extra pieces matter a lot in chess? Well, they matter even more in an endgame when there's only, you know, effectively 3 pieces on the board. So this is going to be a tough situation for Nguyen to win. And he is actually now lower on time compared to Rakhmanov at 57 seconds and counting down. And Rakhmanov is still above 1 minute at 1 minute 10.
Yeah, and there we can see the white king coming in. I mean, white has to try something like this. He has to get those pawns motoring if he wants to win the game. Okay, well, now he's gotten his d pawn up the board, but that black bishop can just simply move away, and it defends the f7 pawn. And we're still loads of danger in the position. But black has found a nice way just to hassle the white king.
Right.
Just keep giving checks.
I mean, it's so hard to hide your king somewhere. Now that you've hidden your king on d6, how are you going to defend your pawn on b5?
And now the black king just steps up and white's pawns are completely blocked. Can't do anything. How are you even going to defend the b pawn? He doesn't. He's going to push the d pawn. And now it's going to be a question of whether Nguyen can actually promote that pawn. Because remember, when a pawn reaches the edge of the board, it becomes a queen.
And oh my God, there was a mistake there. There was a mistake there. So in this position, Rakhmanov had to keep pressuring the pawns. Now he has given white too much time. And this is such a turn of events. This is such a turn of events. That queen promotion, I mean, that is a game changer. When you have a queen in an endgame, it is an instant forfeit, which we just saw from Rakhmanov. Wow, that was crazy.
That was crazy how Nguyen managed to turn that one around, because it looked like it was completely drawn. But in the end, it was all about the clock. It's all about holding the nerves. And we saw that Nguyen managed to rely on his resilience there.
Also, don't forget, this was the final game for the third place match, which meant that whoever won this game is going to win that lovely trophy.
Yeah, he's going to be up on the stage,
He's going to be up on the stage.
That third place trophy. And wow, what an emotional match.
Wow, that was such a crazy endgame. Like the whole time we were saying that Rakhmanov has this now, you know, there's no way he can lose with that bishop. But then he made this mistake of accidentally letting, well, I don't know about accidentally. I mean, you have 35 seconds there. What are you going to do? But he did let Nguyen push his pawns all the way up the board and was not able to defend against that promotion.
Yeah, he just took his chances, and unbelievable. I also just think about it. He had to win 2 games on demand, and he did it.
And he did it. And he just did it.
He had to win with the black pieces. He managed, and then he also had to win this Armageddon game. And it did look like the chips were down, but he turned it around.
I mean, that was a spectacular Armageddon game. I hope everybody was as excited as we were watching that match. It is one of those things that you don't see very often. So I hope you guys are all keeping this in your memory, because Armageddon happens quite seldomly. And to be able to see it as our very first match on the esports stage here at the Olympic Esports Series in Singapore.
I know. I mean, Nguyen must be riding high. And let's go over to Ash, who is there with Nguyen.
That's right, I'm here now with the third place winner, Son. How are you feeling today after that?
Yeah, I'm very happy. This is a very tough tournament for me.
And I believe you have a lot of supporters, you know, today cheering for you. So how do you feel about that? Yeah, you can hear them in the background. How do you feel about your support, you know, from the ground today?
Yeah, my wife come with me to support, and I'm very happy to get something.
And of course, you played against a very well-known grandmaster as well, you know, a fellow compatriot in chess. So how does it feel to be playing against him and, of course, winning?
Yeah, I think he's a good player, and when it's come down to the Armageddon game, it's just I think it's just so lucky, and I'm just more lucky than him. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Son, and all the best as well in your career. And of course, it's back to you guys up there.
Thank you very, very much. And congratulations once again to Nguyen on winning the third place match. We will be seeing the prize ceremony after. But first, we are going to watch the finals between Alexei Sarana and Maxim Chigaev.
Yeah, this is the big one, because this is going to decide who takes that gold trophy home, who gets all the glory, and who gets the silver trophy. And anyhow, these two are old friends, old rivals. They played each other hundreds of times. And Alexei Sarana, he is the rating favorite.
Absolutely. This is going to be a very, very, very exciting match. We do have Sarana coming in at 23 years old, peak FIDE rating of 2685, peaked in the world at rank 47. I mean, he also just won the European Individual Chess Championships earlier this year.
Yeah. I know he's won so many things. He's a regular winner of online tournaments. He's beaten the world's best players. I mean, he really is becoming one of the best players in the world. And then we have Chigaev, 26 years old, also won many strong events, and as we saw yesterday, in powerful form. And there we see the players getting ready. They have their music lists ready. What kind of music would you listen to if you were playing such a big hype match like this?
Honestly, I love rap. I think that's like all I listen to whenever I'm playing chess online. So I would say it would be rap or like 2000s pop. That's my go-to. But I was also Chigaev was grabbing a drink at the bar last night in the hotel where all the participants are staying, and he seemed very, very well rested. He seemed like he was excited for today. He is ready to go. So today's match is going to be fantastic. Now, how do you think this is going to turn out? Do you think we're going to get something as nail-biting as the match for third place? Or
yeah, I absolutely think this one will also go to the wire as well. You know, Sarana is the favorite, but really, when it comes to blitz, it's all about who shows up on the day. Is it your best for shape? Are you in your best shape, or are you in risky shape? And one thing I did notice about Alexei Sarana yesterday is that he was dropping points, whereas Chigaev was a little bit more solid. And there we see Sarana with the white pieces. He's opening up with the c4 pawn. And now big decision from Chigaev. Chigaev has his opening repertoire very well worked out. He tends to play in a very solid manner, and he takes the fireworks to the middle game. We're just going to bring up the analysis board,
yes.
So bear with us.
The game is currently paused. They are going to restart, but it does mean that they do know what the first move is likely to be. So we're just going to get the board up very, very, very quickly. I do think that today it's going to be like just super intense. We just saw one of the most exciting finishes. So we are going to be expecting something on similar levels for this.
Yeah. And there we can see the crowd. Big hello to you guys. And the players are certainly enjoying the vibe. They're enjoying the atmosphere. And do you know, when they all came onto the podium, I felt like some players were like thriving in the limelight. Sarana was one that I had my eye on. And other players just looked a bit twitchy, like they hadn't quite gotten used to having that superstar entrance.
Yes, I think their superstar entrance fit their personas quite well.
And there we see the players. They're just working on the technicalities. And there we know that the first move, it wasn't actually the C pawn, it was going to be the D pawn. And the move pushing the queen's pawn 2 squares forward is also a very well-known strategy. It's a much more solid game, and the players there they're just blitzing out those moves very quickly. I mean, they barely use any time on the clock. And the opening that Chigaev has employed is an opening called King's Indian Defense, and it's one of the most aggressive responses to White's setup. And here we're seeing that White has established a full pawn center, 3 pawns in the middle. They're
3 pawn center. This is something that we love in chess. We call this the Connect 4. Now, I'll let the viewers guess why it's called Connect 4. But we do love a strong center like this coming in from Sarana. Once again, when you're playing with the white pieces, as we have learned from the previous match, you're probably playing for that win. You're playing for that space. You're playing for that initiative. You're playing for space. You're playing for everything, really, with the white pieces. So here we are seeing him come out of the gates with that mindset.
Yeah, and I'll give you a little secret when it comes to putting your pawns on certain central squares. If you manage to put, with the white pieces, a pawn on d5, then basically your plan is not to attack necessarily on the left side of the board, it's to grab as much space as possible. And now, well, White has a big target. There's a pawn on a5 that Black has. It's all alone, it's got no friends, so that is now the target. White needs to perhaps line up both those rooks on the A line. And there we see a trade of bishops, and the Black queen is going to get kicked away. Black queen, big trap on the board. You absolutely cannot grab that pawn.
Nope, you do not want to be
You
taking
don't
this.
want to be taking that pawn.
This queen will get trapped.
Yeah, and then I was trying to work out whether it was going to get trapped. There might be some tactics.
There's tactics here, but once again, we are playing a 3+2 game. So now, once again, we're back to 3+2. This is not Armageddon. This is not that sort of time control where you have sudden death. But at 3+2, you still do not have a lot of time to calculate all this, and Chigaev has decided that queen to b4 is the best bet. They are now currently at 2:27 for black and 2:34 for Alexei, as he is moving his rook over to actually protect the b pawn that we were just talking about that was under attack.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised by this move. I was actually expecting the other rook to step forward and defend that pawn horizontally, but instead we see Sarana just put his rook in a rather passive square. Remember, rooks really like to be on open lines, and if there's one party trick that Sarana has, he loves attacking with his rooks. I mean, it's like a big thing that he does. You know, he moves his rook up the board, usually to the 3rd or to the 6th row, depending on where, you know, what color he is, and then he will just kind of cause damage with that piece.
For sure. Now we see knight to a4 getting that trade in. Once again, whenever your opponent has this sort of piece on an outpost, as we have discovered from previous games, you kind of want to trade it off. So that's what we're seeing here with knight to a4.
Yeah, and well, white still has that same plan very much in mind. You know, he just still simply wants to target that weak pawn sitting there on a5. And also he has like a positional idea. He's saying, you know what, take a look at your dark square bishop, Chigaev. It's really, really bad. I mean, it's just looking at its own pawn.
Right.
He wants that.
This bishop here is just quite sad. He has the pawns on the dark squares right now, and if you have a dark square bishop, it means that you're taking away squares from your own bishop. And as Alexei Sarana moves his bishop over to c6, we see this fork. Now, this tactic might be a new one for some of those back home, but it is attacking the rook and the bishop at the same time. However, the rook on a8 was already hanging, so Sarana has decided he's just going to take that rook first.
Yeah, and we see a pause here because Chigaev is contemplating his options. You know, there's many moves to play. He can play the knight takes bishop. He can play knight takes rook. He can even go rook takes bishop. So many possibilities, and he goes.
Options are endless.
I know, and instead he goes keep it simple, and instead captures the bishop. And again, white has that big question: how are you going to defend the bishop and the rook? And the answer is you can't.
Right.
You have to let go of one of those pieces.
And I think if you're going to let go of one of those pieces, the best way to do it is bishop to b4, where after knight takes a1, you can take with the rook, and then you're attacking two pawns at the same time, and it has been played on the board by Sarana. So this is a very interesting position because, sure, you're going to be losing this rook on a1. However, you already just took a rook on a8, so you're not actually losing any material, right? And as Jovi was saying, you couldn't protect both at the same time anyway, so why not just go for these two pawns?
Yeah, and if you look to the left of the board, you can see the evaluation bar is kind of creeping in white's favor. There's a lot more white, and that means that white is doing very well, has a good chances to win. And a big decision for Chigaev. You know, he's basically on the defensive. Should he keep his rooks on, or should he make that trade? He decides to keep the rooks on. Good decision, in my opinion, because basically, if you're going to save the game, you need to have an active rook to annoy the living daylights out of your opponent.
Absolutely. And one of the other advantages that Sarana has in this position, other than his extra pawn, is he is up on time. He is currently at 1 minute 24, whereas Chigaev only has 48 seconds. And he is going to now give up a pawn for a pawn. The pawn on b2 was exchanged in regards for the pawn on d6, and also making sure to play h4 here so we don't get a back rank mate. Sarana being a little prophylactic over here, and he is going to go into this endgame up a pawn.
Yeah, and what a pawn it is. I mean, when it comes to the endgame, we have this saying, which is not all pawns are created equal. And the best type of pawn that you can get is a protected passed pawn. And passed pawn means just has a free ride to the edge of the board, where it becomes a queen, as we saw on the previous Armageddon game. And this one has just 3 squares from its final destination.
Right.
And not only that, it's protected as well, so that pawn is untouchable.
Absolutely. And if you are tuning into chess for the very, very first time at the Olympic Esports Series, if you're not familiar with promotion means the pawn reaches the bottom rank and it has the option of turning into a queen, a rook, a bishop, or a knight. No king, no pawn options. It cannot remain a pawn on that square. But that is the goal. That is the final destination for all pawns in chess.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, you want that queen.
Right, nine times out of 10. I would say even higher than that.
Exactly, and there we see Sarana. He's playing so quickly. Just look how much time ahead on the clock he is. And he's now introducing his king into that game. Remember that expression, teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely.
And all White has to do is just bring that king into attack, and it feels like Chigaev has a lost position.
Chigaev definitely feels like he has a lost position. However, rook pawn endgames are extremely, notoriously difficult to win when you're up that pawn. And the main reason for that is because rooks move along the same ranks and files as each other, which means they can control all the same squares as each other. However, Alexei here does have a significant time advantage, over 30 seconds, whereas Chigaev's time is going down. Oh my God, he went down to 2 seconds. Wow. Okay. Well, Alexei is in a little better spot with his time. He currently has 30 seconds over here, and he is attacking. So now Sarana does have to defend the e4 pawn, but let's see how he does it.
Yeah, and well, he pushed the f-pawn forward, perhaps trying to get some mating nets against the black king in operation. There comes a check. Okay, you've got to be careful where you put that king, and he's going after the f-pawn. The rook will give another check, the king comes, and now it'll get attacked on the f8 square. And
beautiful endgame technique from Sarana. Now he just has to find pawn to d6, where he will be going for that promotion square, and he finds it.
Of course, and look at this. He's only doing it with 20 seconds on the clock. Chigaev less than 10.
And Chigaev just has resigned in this position. That pawn was going for that queen promotion that we were telling you guys about. And once that queen would have been made, it is just game over, as you might have seen from the Armageddon game.
Yeah. And what a display there from the 23 Sarana. And we just saw the crowd give a big round of applause, and well deserved. I don't think Sarana actually knows that because he's so focused on his game. And he will have the black pieces next. And Chigaev, if he wants to take this match to Armageddon, he has to win at some stage.
Absolutely. This is going to be, once again, is there going to be a comeback from Chigaev? Or is Sarana going to be able to draw this game with black, potentially hold the next game as white as well, and then force Chigaev into a must-win situation? Well, we're going into game number 2 of our finals match today. Yeah. The very last match you will be seeing at the Olympic Esports Series, but it does mean that the winner of this match will be winning that gold trophy.
Yeah, and not only that, you'll be making your name, well, you're putting his name in the history books as well, because this is the very first Olympic Esports Series. And who doesn't want to be in the history books? Who doesn't want to be up on that stage? Who doesn't want to have that trophy? And no one is ever happy when they get a silver trophy, do they?
Absolutely. And I think this is a very interesting opening choice here by Chigaev. We have gone into a line in chess called the Catalan opening.
It's a very solid opening, and White's whole basis of saying that they're slightly better is because their light squared bishop is bearing down on this very long diagonal. Now, Black's sole job, and it's not an easy job, I have to say, is to basically try to challenge that bishop with his own bishop. And if he can do that, he's neutralized the position. If he doesn't, then White will have a very unpleasant advantage for the rest of the game. And, well, we see Black at the minute does have great development, but the light square bishop that he has isn't that great.
Yeah. Here we're going to get a little trade of pieces. Now this diagonal is completely open. However, there are no powerful discovered attacks here. The best that Chigaev can do is place a knight on e5, which is really not that bad. I mean, it's a very good space. Yeah, it's a good square, right?
He does it. He wants to be, so he puts it there. And, well, we see Sarana coolly move his rook out of harm's way.
I do want to make a note, though, that Alexei Sarana currently has 3 minutes 3 full minutes. He hasn't spent any time. In fact, he has gained 4 seconds effectively on his clock. And it's one of those things where it's like if you're playing 3 minute plus 2 second increment and you're still at 3 minutes on move 15, it probably indicates that you're a very strong blitz player. And that's kind of a skill that you want to have when you're playing the finals in the Olympic Esports Series.
Completely agree with you there, Nemo. I mean, when it comes to playing quickly, it's all about confidence. And we have a little saying in chess. Ego equals elo.
Does it?
Yeah.
I've never heard the saying before.
Elo is, of course, the rating that you get. And there we see Black challenge in the middle of the board. And Chigaev finally developing that knight. So tension there in the middle of the board. How is White going to handle this? Or rather Black?
Well, Black probably has to resolve some of the tension by capturing on d4. Now, this might look like a free pawn for now. However, after knight takes b5, rook takes b5, there is knight to c6, which is a fork. When you're attacking 2 pieces, it is going to be played on the board, actually.
Yeah, and Chigaev, like now under a minute and a half, is worrying. I mean,
Chigaev has 1 minute 20 versus Alexis Sarana's 2 minute 20. This is not Armageddon. This is normal blitz.
This is normal blitz, and I was going to say something like in the in yesterday's qualifiers. One thing I noticed when it came to very strong blitz players playing against lower rated is that they matched them in terms of the board. But when it came to the clock, I mean, it was a completely different level.
Right.
Like while one side had like 10 seconds, the stronger player often had 1 minute left on the clock. And
Yes.
you just can't fight in those closing seconds.
Absolutely.
And there we see Sarana just accelerating the play. Now he's potentially threatening to initiate an attack there on the right side of the board.
Yes, on the king side over here, we have seen Sarana's pawn move up to h5. Now, this move actually serves 2 purposes. It prevents back rank mate, and at the same time is an aggressive move where you might see him play h4 at some point, forcing White to make a decision with the g-pawn. However, we don't see that just yet. For now, it seems like it is mostly a preemptive move, just placing the king here on g7, securing the pawn on h5 right now, and it is a very solid position.
Yeah, and it's just, again, very tricky for Chigaev because he doesn't have a clear point of attack, and he's always going to have to be thinking, is Black going to start attacking me? Do I initiate these set of trades? Is the endgame going to be good for me? So many decisions, and that's costing him valuable seconds.
Absolutely. He is now down to 56 seconds, where Sarana is sitting very comfortably at 1 minute 46. Does not seem to be phased at all that this is 3 minutes plus 2 seconds on the grand stage.
No, it's almost like, because I'm a Brit, I'm going to say this, like have a cup of tea.
Right.
Have a cup of tea, just make some moves here. It's just chill zone for Sarana. He's in his element.
He absolutely is. I mean, he does have an online blitz rating of over 3,000 at 3,009 on chess.com. That is pretty impressive.
I was going to say, if that number sounds big to you,
yes,
it is.
It is big. In chess, if the number sounds bigger, it normally indicates that they are better.
All the time, 100%. And whoa, what a move from Chigaev, just moving his king towards the center. I mean, it just, to me, indicates that Chigaev is at a loss for what to do. And so he's just shuffling the king backwards and forwards because unlike any battle game, you don't want to be moving around.
But what
with
is
your king.
knight to
what is
c6?
this?
I'm not sure what knight to c6 is for. Now, it does look like a free knight, but it is not a free knight because if you take with the rook, there is rook takes. And if you take back on the rook, now there's rook takes d8, so you can't play that. However, Black is by no means forced to take this knight, and I think, in fact, rook to d2 is a very exciting move because if rook takes d2, you're taking on the rook on c1 first with a check. Now, this is what we call tactics in chess. This is tactics.
That's a killer one, but okay, that's not
Not
easy
played,
to spot. But
yes.
he goes for it in a different incarnation, and I mean, we can't blame him. That was also very tempting to get your rook along the second row. We kind of call that rook that line the paradise line for the rook. You get it?
Yes, absolutely. Rook on the second is where you want your rook to be.
Yeah.
It controls the entire rank, so the pawns on the second rank are always affected. And then also in the end game, the king can never really move past the second rank.
And you have to remember what I said earlier about Sarana. You know, one kind of unique thing that I've noticed through his play, he loves to attack with
absolutely.
his rooks. Where he can,
it.
he will put his rook on this particular line or the third row. And Chigaev there, he's actually pushing some pawns there on the left side of the board. But Sarana has one material.
Now actually the time difference has come down a lot. Sarana did spend a lot of time on that one move where he had the opportunity to find a really cool tactic. He unfortunately passed it up, but they're both now at about 22 seconds for Sarana and 15 seconds for Chigaev.
And there we see Chigaev advancing his pawn and Sarana immediately retreating his knight. He had anticipated this, and that knight is now attacking the pawn on g5. Can he grab it? No, he can't grab it because his rook is under attack.
Right.
So knowing Sarana will put his rook on the most aggressive line. No, he goes for the protection.
It's not that bad. He is playing a little bit safe. It's harder to get the rook here. Once again, they are playing with quite low time now, almost just 10 seconds for Sarana. So the most important part when you're low on time is to not lose material. Sometimes you're more focused on just not blundering. Hey, let's just get some moves in. Don't forget, they also have 2 seconds increment per move. So every time you're making a move successfully without losing pieces, you're actually gaining time.
Yeah, but there's some pressure here for Chigaev because his pieces are really well placed and they're all harmonizing very nicely against the f7 point. But Sarana, cool as a cucumber, he just, retreats his bishop, attacks
Whoa,
the rook.
Chigaev! Oh my god, going down to 1 second.
Oh!
He has us.
On tenterhooks.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
And with now 4 seconds, it's just a question of whether he can survive the clock.
I mean, I think this is just a matter of shuffling pieces correctly. This is quite an equal position. Obviously, black is up a pawn. Oh my god, there's now rook g1.
And then the king will come forward, and it looks like white's king is in big trouble.
There's a mating net somewhere here that I don't quite see.
Yeah, and he steps back, gives a check. You might as well redo this just to give yourself some extra time.
There is bishop takes f4 with g5 ideas, but they are playing on 10 seconds each. Oh, it has been played. It's on the board. It is on the board.
And once again, white's king is in big trouble, and he wins again.
Wow. I mean, that was a very sudden resignation, actually, from Chigaev. I'm slightly surprised by that because it is not checkmate just yet. He does lose the bishop, however, with such short time. I mean, they're playing between grandmasters, so it is what it is. But can't feel very good for Chigaev, where once again, this is a best out of 4. So if Alexei even draws this game, that is the end of it.
That's it.
That's it.
So Chigaev is now in the unenviable position of having to win the last 2 games. And that is big task ahead of him. And there we see Chigaev also with the black pieces.
Very tough situation. We were just talking about how when you're playing with black, you more or less are just playing for a draw in a lot of these situations. Playing in a must-win, not even a draw. A draw is going to... A draw already ends the match.
Yeah.
A draw already ends the match.
Exactly, and the stage will be set. And there we see Sarana. He's just in beast mode today. You know, he's playing so perfectly, and Chigaev is looking quite helpless, I have to say. He seems to be floundering, and now he's attacking a pawn, but Sarana says, I can deal with that, just step forward with the queen. And of course, white does have the plan of lining up the bishop and the queen so that they can start softening up the black king.
Right. This is going to be an interesting game. Right now, we do see Chigaev having quite a powerful pawn on d4. However, it is not going anywhere because of the bishop on d3.
And they come a-marching.
There come the pawns by Sarana. He is an aggressive player. Jovi has mentioned that already. And we can already see he's also creating space for his rooks to move up, come along. You know, there's a lot of attacking opportunities here. He might play f5. Chigaev's already in a slightly tough spot. His pieces are a little bit more passive. He has less space. His bishop is once again behind a dark squared pawn with not many opportunities. Not a bright future for this bishop.
I completely agree with you. I mean, all of Black's pieces just look like they're completely jammed up. I mean, the knight, where's it going? I mean,
I don't know where it's going.
You look ahead to the future and you're like, well, my knight's bad for now, but it's going to move to this beautiful square in 2 moves' time. And this knight is on a really bad circuit. The light square bishop is also jammed in by its own piece. It doesn't have a healthy square to go to either. And as you mentioned earlier, the dark square bishop
is a bit sad. Dark Turret Bishop is a bit sad. I think that's been a theme for Chigaev's games, unfortunately, today.
Yeah, so he needs to mix it up. I mean, he really needs to break through and unravel his pieces. And he steps back with the queen. It's difficult to kind of see the point of that. But Alexei says, you know what? I don't care that a draw is good enough for me to win.
Yeah, right.
I want more. He wants to go for the 3-0.
He definitely has opportunities to do so. We're only 16 moves into the game. Now, this is 3+2, so time runs fast, but Chigaev is at 1 minute, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That's not great when you have, the rest of the game to play. And Alexei is, once again, comfortably sitting at 2 minutes 30.
Yeah. Just chilling there.
Just another day in the park for him.
But, we have to say something. Chigaev is an exceptional player.
Absolutely.
He is really, a fantastic player, very experienced at this time control. I mean, yesterday he looked so calm. He was in a powerful mode. And here we have Alexei Sarana just making it look easy.
I think Maxim Chigaev is actually top 25 in the world for rapid chess, which is the time control that is a little bit slower, not a lot slower than 3+2, but in rapid he is one of the best players in the world. But Alexei Sarana today just feels like his day. He is playing comfortably, he is playing fast, his positions flow very well. He has now played bishop c2, just triple, making sure that he does not lose the b pawn accidentally. There is no real purpose to this move other than just defending the b pawn once again.
And it does mean that the white rook can now actually move towards the center. And wow, well, we have a desperado there from Chigaev, just giving up a pawn in order just to gain some activity. But he has a concrete idea at least, and the idea is just to destabilize the protection of that c4 pawn.
I believe a4 will be played next. That has to be the idea behind sacrificing a pawn on b5.
Idea. Otherwise, here it comes. But Sarana is like, you know what? I had anticipated that.
I'm just
5 moves ago.
Right. He has moved his bishop back to d3 and has moved the queen over to c2 and is now just sitting here with a pawn up. And a 2 minute and 10-second time advantage.
Yeah.
Because Chigaev only has 15 seconds on the clock, whereas Sarana has 2 minutes 25.
And, talking about pawn rolling down the boards, we have Sarana also initiating an attack there on the right side of the board. And also making those fine tactical moves.
Wow.
Taking a pawn before he captures in the center. And now the knight is coming in. I mean, it's just falling apart for Chigaev.
This is super impressive. I am absolutely stunned by Sarana's play today. He has no problems at all playing aggressive chess. He is here with 2 minutes on his clock, whereas Chigaev has only 6 seconds. And, he has this idea, actually, of knight to f6. That's probably what he's spending a little bit of time now that he has stocked up, calculating with knight to f6 and off to bishop takes. There is bishop takes f5, which is called an in-between move because you're kind of expected to take this bishop. Oh, and instead he actually plays something even more aggressive and just goes for this exchange sacrifice, giving up the rook for the bishop.
It looks really good. Right. Very fancy way of actually just putting the ball in the back of the net.
I just wanted to swap off pieces, but
Me too.
He is just going to sacrifice the rook for a bishop and is actually currently completely winning.
Yeah, I mean, you can just take a look at the bar there. It's way in White's favor, which means that White is completely dominating. And also take a look at the clock times. Chigaev in this exceptionally complicated position. He has a very hard defensive task ahead of him, only with 5 seconds there on the clock. And we see Sarana winning back material.
Yeah, now after queen takes e7, at least some of those checkmating threats that Sarana had have faded because he does not have sufficient material really to attack the king anymore on h7. But that does not mean it's going to stop. He is going to come for it. We know we have identified Sarana's style of chess by now, and he is 100% I'm predicting this. He's playing
predicting
queen.
that.
No, never mind. He played bishop to c7. So after bishop c7, really quick note here, there is no queen takes because of mate in 3, followed by this. So there was no free bishop in that position. However, black has played rook takes d3, and after queen takes d3, queen takes c7. This endgame is less clear for Sarana because black is up that exchange that we were talking about earlier, right? Remember, Sarana did sacrifice an exchange for all of this activity, for all of this gameplay. But if you go into the endgame having...
You know what? Judging by his hesitation, he didn't see this.
Oh yeah, I don't think he saw this.
He just thought he was putting the boot in, but he wasn't. And, well, still a lot of work to be done. But I don't think Sarana is in too much trouble. I think he can easily neutralize it. Now he just has to move the bishop out of harm's way. And how is Chigaev going to defend the pawn on d3? And you do have to remember, Chigaev is in a must-win situation.
Right.
And you're not going to do it now.
Yeah, I think now it is very hard, especially being down 2 pawns. I mean, playing for a win down 2 pawns is completely unheard of.
Mission impossible, and we see resignation.
Resignation. I mean, it is a drawish position, but you know, I mean, there's potential for draw. I don't know about drawish position, but Alexei Sarana had a very, very comfortable match, I would say. Chigaev is by no means a weak chess player. He is one of the best in the world. But Sarana today was just better. Yeah, he just played so well.
Yeah, he woke up in the morning and he smelled blood and he went for it, winning 3-0. And there we have our winner of the Olympic Esports Chess Series, Alexei Sarana.
Alexei Sarana. Actually crushing it today. So we do have our winner. We are going to be heading into the prize giving ceremony very, very soon. And we are actually also going to be having a quick interview in a moment with Ashley, who is on the ground. So
that's right. Thank you very much. And of course, we do have the winner here with us. Congratulations, Sarana. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's amazing feeling. I expected a lot from this tournament and I enjoyed it. And before the tournament, I considered myself as a favorite. I repeated and I managed to even win it. Yeah, I'm happy.
Well, congratulations once again. And what do you think in general, you know, of this entire series for chess?
It's something very unusual, something very new, but I like it a lot. To play on the scene with a lot of spectators. To be honest, I never played with spectators, I think, so like this, yeah.
It's great that you enjoy it, and of course, yeah, you have this. You can hear the spectators clapping for you. How does it feel to win, you know, the inaugural Olympic Esports Series in chess? It must be something special for you, right?
It's. I still don't know because it's something new. What I win, what I will get, I don't know which emotions, but I'm really happy, of course. Oh, yeah.
Congratulations once again, and of course, enjoy the trophy. I'm sure that you will, you know, celebrate it as much as your fans here. It's back to you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, guys, what an incredible event it was. Chess at the Olympic Esports Series 2023. And can I just say, and for everyone in here, the live audience, a big round of applause for our expert commentators as well, who are absolutely fantastic, making a lot of sense of it for me as well. I really needed all of that. But what incredible action, guys. And I do want to ask you, firstly, the third place playoff going to Armageddon. We asked for it and we got it. How good was that?
That was insane. I really did not expect it. You know, Nguyen needing to win on demand to take it to Armageddon, and then that crazy Armageddon where again he turned it around just when it looked like things weren't going his favor.
What was your moment for this one, Nemo? Because we were all looking forward to the final, but then we were treated to a 5-game playoff in the third place. What stands out to you as the moment of this day?
honestly, I have to say Armageddon always stands out.
Yeah.
But I do also really want to celebrate how well all of these chess players play today. You know, everyone just put up their best effort. Nguyen had to come back from being down. He was in a must-win situation, and he did it. He did.
Yeah, it was incredible. All these amazing players really put on a show for us, and now it's time to commemorate them in the best way possible, something we haven't seen before in chess. It's a trophy celebration on stage in front of the live audience. I'll pass you down to the team down there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed a part of history in the finals of this chess category. Let's give a big round of applause for all of our players and invite them back on stage. We would also like to invite IOC member Mr. Carl Stoss on stage to present the trophies. Now in third place, congratulations, Nguyen. Congratulations, Nguyen. And in second place, we have Maxim Chigaev. Congratulations once again, Maxim Chigaev. And ladies and gentlemen, your winner for the Olympic Esports Series chess category is Alexei Sarana. And now we would like to have Alexei lift the winner's trophy in 3, 2, 1. Congratulations, thank you very much, Mr. Carl Stoss, for representing the trophies, and to our players who gave all to this series. Let's give them a big round of applause. And now, ladies and gentlemen, coming up at stage 2, we've got tennis. So head on over for that. We will see you back here at stage 1 at 7:45.
Well, there you have it. Alexei Sarana, an European individual chess champion. He's now an Olympic Esports Series winner at 23 years of age. Guys, thank you so much for joining me out here. But I think it's important before we go just to talk about the high quality of chess that we saw, and you'd be forgiven for those who don't watch a whole lot of chess to think a 3-0 result in the final, but how good is Chigaev as a player as well?
He's exceptional, really, like one of the world's best and a top 100 player, and so for Sarana to beat Chigaev like that was really incredible.
Amazing. I guess I just wanted it more on the day. And Nemo, final thoughts as to how big this is for chess. Do you think we could see the start of a lot more live events like this?
Personally, this is how I want chess to be played in the future, with the live audience, with the fireworks coming out in the closing ceremony. I mean, it is just such an amazing event and has been an amazing experience here in Singapore, I'm sure, for all the players and your commentators.
Well, thank you so much to you two. A fantastic job from you guys. We've already seen so many sports here at the Olympic Esports Week. We've now seen chess. There's still so much more to come your way. Wow, what an event.